My gorgeous psychic sister, how are you? I'm just now clocking this shirt. Was this custom made?
No. This is just a
Incredible.
generic Perito Degato shirt.
And it's a little kitty who looks like Boo.
He does.
In a burrito, wrapped in a little burrito.
I know, it's perfect.
It's wonderful.
Johnny got it for me, I think for Christmas? ?
Amazing.
And yeah, it's perfect.
No notes.
Turned into a crop.
Of course.
Of course. I'm wonderful. How are you, my gorgeous partner in true crime?
I'm doing well. Randomly watched a ton of shit over the weekend. Not over the weekend, over the week, I'd say. There are not one, but two Titan Submersible documentaries. I watched both of them, obviously.
I can love you, dude.
I think it's Investigation Discovery. I think it's called Implosion. I preferred that one to the Netflix one. My brain was having a really hard time processing that information. So it took me like 2.5 times longer to watch the Netflix one than the other one. And there's this fascinating thing, this pattern that exists with like disasters and quote unquote accidents it is a breakdown of processes that it's multiple people had to not do their job, fail at their job, or be fired because they wanted to do their job correctly.
Yes.
To end up where this happened, which is exactly what happened with the Titan Submersible, which is fucked. The Implosion doc very heavily features Josh Gates, who I adore in every possible way. He's the host of Expedition Unknown and all these he's like very like Indiana Jones-esque, who's like snarky and fun and wonderful.
Okay. Yes.
So his show was gonna do a whole episode on the Titan. Like they went on it. They were supposed to go down to the Titanic. 100%.
Chilling.
And I remember right after this happened that he was like on the news everywhere, but he's very prominently featured in the Implosion doc. And you see the video footage because they were going to do it for the show. Like the video footage of him in the fucking submersible and everything. And it being like kind of from the get, nothing fucking worked. Nothing was working. And then he was like, they had to abandon the mission and that he had to go to the head of the fucking network to be like, I understand you spent a fuck ton of money for this, but I cannot in good conscience do a documentary supporting this because then people are going to be like, oh, this is legit. And I should go and like get on this rinky ass fucking submersible. And he's like, it's dangerous. And then like 2 years later, like all the shit went down.
Yes. Also, I'm not getting in a vehicle I don't trust. So no, absolutely not.
No, definitely not.
What can I watch the Investigative Discovery one on?
It's also on Max.
Okay.
I believe it's also on Max because now like Max is also like ID stuff. Just like
yes,
search Implosion. I don't know.
I can do that. I know how to Goog.
I also watched the HBO 3-part true crime documentary series, The Mortician.
Oh, that looked really good. How was that?
Amy, my jaw lived on the floor. It made its home. It bought furniture. It was part of the HOA. It lived there. Oh my God. Like, it's horrific and somehow just kept getting worse.
Oh my God. Okay.
And was like way worse than what you think it's going to be about.
And it looked pretty bad to begin with.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's fucked.
Yeah.
And then ends in a like kind of Jinx moment.
Oh, really?
So you're like, excuse me? What? Huh?
Okay. Say no more. I'm sold.
And then to offset all of that awfulness off of our lovely friend, Donna. Donna, we love you. Hi.
Hi, Donna.
Her recommendation that the UK version of the TV show Ghosts is better than the US version. I can attest to this. Yes, it is. It's absolutely wonderful.
Oh, yay.
And I kind of can't handle my life about it.
Okay.
It's so great. It's so great.
I mean, the UK versions are always better. Let's be real.
Yeah. I mean, I think the US version is very fun. The UK version is fucking great.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I have to
Yeah.
finish the US one first, though, because then I feel like I'm not going to be able to go back if I start the UK one.
That's fair. I mean, the UK, as usual, is much shorter. There's much less episodes, and the US one is still actively going on.
Yeah, and it's like 4 seasons available now. So,
right. But I mean, there's lots of one, obviously, the history of the UK is different than the US, so the ghosts
yes.
are different. And the show was created by most of the people who play ghosts in the UK version.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so they have a very strong understanding of who these characters are because they created them.
Okay, I love that.
I mean, they're characters that are kind of adjacent, but in the UK version, because it's older, there's like a Neanderthal man.
Oh my God, yes.
Who died on the property.
Stop. Okay.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And there's a whole thing about like the moon and like the lunar eclipse and whatever. And like, you know, that he's like worshiping the moon. Great, great, great. And then one of them mentions that that we landed on the moon. And he's like, what? But great, he's also like a Neanderthal man. So they like pull up the YouTube and they show him the video and he's like, oh my God. And then all the other ghosts like fuck off to do some other shit. And then you know how like sometimes when you're watching a YouTube video, like another video just starts?
Oh God, yes.
So then like he's like there and then another video starts about how it's actually conspiracy that we like landed on the moon. And then it's like 8 hours later and he's watched like all of these like crazy conspiracy fucking videos about like every fucking thing imaginable. And it's so fucking funny.
Oh my God. No, that's hysterical.
It's wonderful. And there's one ghost who was beheaded, so he's constantly losing his head and like it's wonderful.
Okay, that's so fun. There is a beheaded ghost in the US version and they like eventually find his head way later in the series.
Oh, so this one like the head is always like around. Like it's always there, but they're never like they're very rarely together.
Okay, that's fun though.
Like he'll be like on his head will be on the floor and then the body will he'll be like, no, go down, like left. And he's like, oh, fuck. You know, like it's there. He can never coordinate his body to like get his head.
I love that. Okay.
It's wonderful. Donna, you're right, as usual.
She always
about
is.
Everything.
She always is.
So if you have, I'm pretty sure you can watch it on Prime. I don't know. I've succumbed to buying everything. Like I have subscriptions for all of the things.
Same.
So I
think it's either that or Paramount Plus, maybe.
Yes.
Don't quote me on it, but I think that might be the other place it's available.
Yes, because I have both.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one but I know it appears on both.
Again, give it a Google.
Google it. It's so great and fun. And they also don't overly explain things because the Brits just trust you to understand what's happening, which is not what happens. Like I rewatched, because I actually had seen the first few episodes of Ghost, I realized. I rewatched the first episode of the US Ghost and the first episode of the UK one. And it's very different in that in the US version, like when there's like the scene, like right in the beginning where like the person dies.
Yes.
And they're explaining how they're ghosts. That doesn't happen in the UK version.
Okay, interesting.
Like they start to say it, but they don't get into a whole thing. It's kind of like, yeah, you can put this together. Like there's a guy holding his head. We're not alive. And we're all different time periods. Like I'm going to expect you to put your thinking cap on and figure out what's happening here.
Use your powers of deduction. Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do appreciate that.
I get that. And then, yeah, the US version, a lot of times, and I know why they do this, it's so people can kind of pick up the show at any point if it's airing and you understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they'll explain things that have obviously already been explained before, and they'll just like have somebody make like a one-off comment to like explain what's happening if you haven't been following the show. So I do get that.
Yeah. And the accident that happens is like intentional in the beginning.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's a little dark. It's kind of like really heartfelt, but it's also a little darker. I like guffaw at least once an episode, like out loud.
Okay. I love that.
It's not the same as what we do in the shadows, but it's kind of like in the same type of thing of like, it's like a spooky thing, but it's not scary. And it's very funny and very smart and very fun.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's no talking heads. Like, it's not like an interview type of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a spooky thing that's very fun.
Okay. Well, there is one talking head apparently, but not in that way.
Ayo, there is.
Hey.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
It's wonderful.
Okay.
Can't recommend it enough.
Fun. All right. I got to switch over and watch that one then. Especially if it's shorter. I can breeze through that.
Yeah. I think it's 5 seasons, but it's like 6 episodes a season.
Yeah.
It's the UK. Yeah.
Fun. I have not watched anything new. I've been just keeping up with Murderbot, and I have been watching The US Ghost and Stanley Cup Finals here. My big excitement.
Where are we at on the Stanley Cup Finals?
Game 6 tomorrow. And if the Panthers win, they win the cup. If not, Game 7.
Oh, shit.
So we'll see.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. It's been very interesting. I thought I would be bored because it's the same teams as last year, but I've been entertained. I'll give them that.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, my week was filled with a lot of fun podcast stuff. So,
yes.
Yeah, we're going to be having some new episodes dropping on Patreon. Patreon exclusive episodes where we go over the insane documentary Chimp Crazy that Monique convinced me to watch.
We're finally doing it.
Yep. And it's insane. Highly, highly recommend if you haven't checked it out. We also have some new merch coming out later this month. And I got to work on some
cute.
Fun new. It's real cute. Monique's brilliant idea. And then, I helped put it together.
I'm just an ideas gal. Amy executes everything.
Well,
I just talk shit.
She's knocking them out of the park. I didn't come up with this brilliant idea. So I'm just happy to be involved.
It's so cute. I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Guess I'm buying all of our merch then.
I know.
Same. As usual.
This one's real cute. I'm real excited about this one.
Yeah, because it definitely features a crop, and Amy loves a crop.
I love a crop. Yes.
So if you want exclusive access to our Patreon episodes, Patreon-only episodes, or first dibs on our cute as fuck merch that is dropping in a couple weeks, sign up on our Patreon.
Yeah.
And that is just some of the many goodies we have coming your way. So keep your eyes peeled and stay tuned.
Yeah. And you also get discounts on our merch if you join our Patreon. So it's a win-win.
Who doesn't love a deal?
I love a deal. So that's my big excitement for the week. Are you ready to get into some spooky stories?
Let's fucking do it, girl. I can't wait.
Amazing. All right. I've got an interesting one for you. I stumbled on a new Paranormal Witness-esque show. Not as good, obviously. Very few are.
Yep.
So the show is called Scariest Night of My Life. This episode was supposed to be season 1, episode 10, but I watched it under season 1, episode 7 on Tubi. Again, I feel like this happens a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. But the title of this segment is titled Kevin Help Us. And slight trigger warning, very, very brief mention of death by suicide and the death of a pet, not traumatic. And at the risk of spoiling the story, the possible spiritual death of a pet, which is slightly traumatic.
Okay.
I don't think it's that traumatic. I think everyone's going to be okay. So, let's get into it.
Let's do it, girl.
This story takes place in November of 2014. Pauline was a 25-year-old single mother at the time and had just moved into a new apartment in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with her 2-year-old daughter, Amelia. She had managed to find a 2-bedroom apartment that she could afford, and she was excited to finally be able to give her daughter her own room. It was a very, very cheap apartment, though, and while she wished they had someplace a little nicer, she was looking forward to the two of them starting their life together in a new place. The only thing missing was her cat, Kevin, who had passed away 6 months earlier. Pauline said he was a wonderful cat and that he had come to her at a point in her life where she was going through a tremendous loss, and she loved him dearly. He was super affectionate and had adored her daughter. Amelia spent the first year of her life playing with him, and Pauline said Amelia loved that cat. Kevin had been 4 years old when he passed away. Pauline didn't go into details about what happened, but it seems that he had to be put down. When she was saying her goodbyes to him at the vet, she asked him to wait for her. It had always been the three of them, but after the loss of Kevin, it was just the two of them. And Pauline admitted that the new apartment felt empty without him and his meows. I did have to laugh at the reenactment of this part of the show because they show her, oh my God, Monique, I genuinely laughed out loud. They show her looking at a shelf of pictures of the cat, and they are literally all the same photo, just in different frames.
Incredible. Amazing.
You couldn't find 3 different pictures of the same cat. I have over 200 photos of Boo on my phone, and I've only had him for a year and a half.
Of course.
What?
Of course.
It didn't even have to be her actual cat. You could have just gotten... There was no one on the crew with a cat who had 3 photos? What?
Girl. The props department and the set designer fucked that shit up real bad. Oh my God.
It's so ridiculous. It also looks like the photos are CGI'd in. It doesn't look like they're actually in the frame. So what?
Stop it.
What?
Girl. I cannot. I love that. I'm obsessed.
I had a good giggle at that. I'm not going to lie. On November 7th, Pauline had spent the day organizing the apartment. When she had finally finished unpacking, she went to the living room to watch TV with Amelia. But she started to feel like she was being watched. And after a few minutes, she saw something flicker out of the corner of her eye. She saw a shadow, like a dark figure, standing in the doorway of the nursery. She did a double take, but when she looked back, there was nothing there. She knew she was exhausted from moving, though, and figured she was so tired that maybe her eyes were playing tricks on her. All she wanted to do was relax and watch a show with Amelia before bed, so she just tried to brush it off. But she still felt uneasy and said she couldn't shake the sneaking suspicion that they weren't alone in their house. So she got up and went to check the nursery. But there was nothing there, just Amelia's crib and toys and the empty cat bed. Amelia called out to her mom from the living room to tell her that the show was over, and Pauline told her it was time for bed. She took Amelia to the nursery door, but hesitated. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a good idea to have her sleep in there by herself.
Girl, always trust that gut.
Yep. So Pauline decided to have her sleep in her room with her instead. Amelia was happily playing on her bed when she started saying, "Purple-faced man, purple-faced man, purple-faced man."
No, thank you. No.
Over and over.
No.
Again. No, we don't live here anymore.
No. No, absolutely not. Pack your shit. Don't care. Let's go to Target afterwards. You can get all new shit. Absolutely the fuck not. No.
We're done.
Nope. No.
Then Amelia pointed at the closet in the bedroom. The door of the closet was open, though, and nothing was there. Pauline thought it was weird, but just chalked it up to something Amelia had seen on TV while she'd been unpacking. She tucked her daughter in and told her goodnight, but realized that she had forgot to put a pull-up on her before bed, so she went to the nursery to grab one. As she got close to the door, she heard a noise coming from inside. She said it sounded like something inside was moving or talking. She had to fight back every ounce of fear inside her to open that door. When she did, she saw that the room was a mess. Amelia's toys were all over the floor, and all the electronic toys were going off at once. Her teddy bear was saying, "I love you, Amelia."
No.
Which,
no.
I know. No.
Hate it.
They don't go into it. I'm assuming it was programmed to say that originally.
Sure, of course. Yeah. I don't care.
It's still creepy. Absolutely not.
Hate it.
Batteries were coming out of everything.
That doesn't mean shit, girl.
That's very true.
That doesn't mean shit.
Burn it down.
Girl, mild tangent. So I have been working at my bar. It's 4 years, I think, this week or next week. And I do not work at the creepy bar. I do not work at the ghosty bar. I've never had any paranormal thing happen ever at my bar. And my boss, she's very into mood lighting, which is great. And so all of the lights in the bar are on dimmers. And she has literally marked on the dimmer where she wants it dim to, which is basically the lowest you can have it that's on.
But it's not off. Yeah.
Right. It basically, it's like yeah, exactly. Amy, it was Friday night. I'm working, bar's full.
Friday the 13th.
I didn't even put that shit together.
Girl, yes. What happened?
Friday the 13th.
Oh my God, no.
I'm working. All of the lights gradually turn all the way bright and like flicker.
No.
And like just start flickering. And then I was like, because I've had that happen where like I didn't realize like I was moving something, like, and that I like to, and I was like, oh, but I'm like, I'm not by the lights. No one's by the lights. I go to look, the lights are all the way down. They're dimmed all the way down, but they are fully bright and flickering.
Weird.
And then I try to put it down more. It's not possible for it to be like put down more.
Yeah.
Then I like have to like turn it off and turn it back on. And then it's like, but it's like all of the lights. And granted, these are multiple dimmers. It's not just like one switch. It's like three or it's like four dimmers.
No.
And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Like, are the ghosts moving locations? What's happening here?
I don't know. Yeah, it was a bit unsettling.
Yeah, that's a little creepy. A wee bit creepy.
But like I said, the dimmer was all the way down.
Yeah.
Taking batteries out of toys don't mean shit, girl.
Clearly not. Yeah, that's very unsettling. Okay. Keep me posted. I want to know if more weird shit happens.
I will, yeah.
Pauline was startled and worried that someone had been in her daughter's room. She checked the windows and the closet, but she was sure that no one had been in there. But even though the room was empty, she had the distinct feeling that something was in the house with them, and she worried that her daughter was in danger. She quickly left the room, closed the door behind her, and went back to her bedroom. She checked on Amelia, but the little girl was fine and sleeping soundly. Pauline got into bed, but was unable to fall asleep. As she was lying there, she felt a familiar weight settle on top of her. She said, quote, "It was the feeling of my cat Kevin coming into bed and cuddling with me, like he had every day of his life," end quote. Although rationally, she knew he was gone and admitted that it obviously could have been her imagination. She was exhausted. She just moved into a new place. Weird things had happened. She needed that comfort that night. So it was a wonderful feeling. And she finally began to doze off. But she was woken up, not long after, by the sound of growling. It seemed to be coming from her closet where Amelia had pointed earlier.
What the fuck?
Girl. Pauline felt a sense of dread overtake her. She checked on Amelia, but again, the little girl was fine and still fast asleep. There was nothing out of place in her room or in the open closet. The growling was making her feel uneasy, though, so she got up and closed the closet door. The feeling of dread was so intense, though, that she had to leave the room. She needed water, so she went to the kitchen to grab a glass and splash her face with cold water while she was in there. After a few minutes, she was feeling a little bit better, so she started walking back towards her room, but immediately stopped in her tracks. She saw an enormous shadow of a dog heading straight for her room.
What the fuck?
I don't know. This was a weird one. I've not really heard something quite like this. It's going to get weird. Once again worried that her daughter was in danger, she ran to the bedroom. But there was nothing there. Everything was where it was supposed to be, and Amelia was asleep. But the closet door, which she had just closed, was open again. Although she was now thoroughly freaked out, she just pushed it shut again and got back into bed, not knowing what else to do. She said, quote, "I felt like I was losing my mind," end quote. She was a grown woman, finally living in her own place, but she was worried that every little bump in the night was going to send her into a panic attack. She was still exhausted, though, and knew she needed to sleep. So she tried again to fall asleep. And once again, she felt the same comforting weight settle on her legs and felt like her cat, Kevin, was there with her. And having Kevin there made her feel safe enough that she was finally able to fall asleep. But once again, she was woken up by the same growling sound from before. Only this time, it was getting louder and more threatening and more terrifying.
I hate everything about this.
Monique. Just wait. This is terrifying enough. I was not really prepared for this one part of the story we're going to get to very shortly.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what to think of it still. It's really fucking with my head, honestly. Pauline immediately grabbed her daughter and tucked her in the bed with her under the blankets. As the growling got louder and louder, she pulled the covers over their heads and held her close to her. The growling was so loud and so intense that it felt like the dog was right next to them. Pauline said she could feel something moving at the end of the bed and suddenly felt the weight on her feet move. Then there wasn't just growling in the room anymore. She now heard the sound of a cat hissing and yowling.
What the fuck?
Girl. Ghost cat to the rescue.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
I know. I needed to hear that ghost cats were a thing for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yes. It got louder and more intense, and the mattress started shaking. Pauline said, quote, "I heard the sound of my cat fighting with whatever it was that had come out of my closet," end quote. But all she could do was hold Amelia close and hope that it would be over soon. There was one final, scary growl. Then the room became eerily silent. Pauline said, quote, "It had been so loud that silence actually felt like a punch," end quote. This is where it's going to get a little intense. Then the crunching began, wet and cracking like bone snapping. Quote, "I could hear the dog spirit eating Kevin," end quote.
What the fuck?
Girl, I don't know. I have never heard of something like this.
No!
This
what
is
the
insane.
Fuck?
I did not think spirits could eat other spirits. Did not think that was a possibility. New fear unlocked.
They don't have bones.
They don't have bones. What is going on? I don't know.
I don't know, clearly.
And Pauline gets choked up at this point in the interview. And like you can see that she has tears running down her face. But continues saying, quote, "The sounds I heard were so horrible. I don't know if Kevin's spirit still exists," end quote. She stayed under the covers the entire night, just praying for daylight to come so she could get Amelia out of that place. Pauline said, as the title of the show demands, that was the scariest night of her life. Pauline and her daughter moved less than 2 months later because, correct, Pauline, finally someone who's not fucking around and like staying in this creepy ass haunted house. Get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Before they left, Pauline mentioned to one of her neighbors the weird things that had happened in their apartment. The neighbor told her that if any of the apartments there would be haunted, it would have been hers, because a man had hung himself there in the closet of Pauline's bedroom, which gives her daughter's claim of the purple-faced man a chilling new meaning. To this day, Pauline believes that Kevin sacrificed his spirit to protect them from whatever it was in that house that night, and is forever grateful that he was still watching over them, even after death. And that is the story of the time the spirit of Pauline's cat sacrificed itself to protect her and her daughter.
My jaw's on the floor.
Right?
What the fuck?
This was such a weird story. I really didn't know what to think about it. Yeah. Your face is correct, Monique. I know. I watched like a couple episodes. I like watched a lot of these stories, and I just like this one. I was like, I just still can't stop thinking about this. What the fuck? What the fuck? But on the bright side, there's ghost cats.
Yes. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say or think other than what the fuck.
I have no idea. This like was kind of a thing that never occurred to me. Like I was like, sure, it's creepy dog spirits. Like I feel like we've heard stories of that or adjacent to that, but like a dog and cat spirit fight, I was not prepared for.
No. My jaw lives on the floor.
Same. I literally,
I don't even know what to say to this. Like,
Monique, I know. This is why I struggled so hard with the trigger warnings. I was like, I don't even know how to explain this. Like, it sounds so fucked up. It's just like the crunching of the bones and stuff, but also their ghost. I don't know.
Amy, I love you so much.
I love you so much.
Was explaining the podcast to someone at the bar recently who was like a new, like had never been to the bar, you know, it was brought up. I was explaining it. Someone who I do know, who you've met, who doesn't listen to the podcast, was there. And like, for some reason, like, oh, it was like, oh, what kind of stories do you do? Whatever. And I was like, my podcast partner does stories that are horrific and will fuck your life up forever. And then the person who knows you was like, Amy, really? I'm like, 1,000% If it's Thanksgiving, there's like a 90% chance it's going to be a cannibalism story that you've never heard of and will fuck your life up. Like, Amy only does horrific stories. And here you are with another one.
Yeah. I do have some horrific stories. I'm just trying to keep up, Monique. I'm just trying to keep you on your toes.
I am in full releve, as they say in ballet class. Always.
I'm like so weirdly complimented by that.
I adore you. Never change.
Thank you.
I don't even know what to say about this story other than what the fuck.
Girl, same. I knew you wouldn't. So yes, I needed somebody to experience this with me because I was just like, what? I don't know. It's so strange. So yeah, a little bit on the shorter side, but I hope the mind fuckery made up for it.
But the trauma is long lasting.
Yes. Heyo, as it is with me.
Thank you for that.
Question mark? Yes.
I literally don't. I don't have words.
I don't think I've ever seen you this speechless. Yeah.
No.
All right.
And you've traumatized me on a weekly basis.
I
for
do.
4 years.
I do this.
Almost 5 years. Oh my God. 4.5 years.
Mission accomplished.
Crushed as usual.
Thank you. On that note, do you want to take me into your true crime den?
Yeah.
Is it traumatizing? Are you going to traumatize me with some true crime?
I think yes, but I definitely went rogue.
Oh my God, I love it. I love when you get rogue.
Yeah, I went rogue. You'll see as we get through it as to how so. So let's get into it. Sources: ncbinlm.nih.gov, Wikipedia, chem.fsu.edu, brainly.com, Reddit, and the podcast Radio Rental. Have you ever listened to this?
Literally just discovered this week and have been listening to it. It's delightful.
So I've heard about this for years. For those who don't know, it's Rainn Wilson of The Office fame, Dwight Schrute, but he's like playing this kind of character, Terry Carnation.
Yeah.
Who like runs a like niche video store. So I didn't listen to it because I wasn't particularly interested in like a narrative, fictional, spooky thing. But it's not. This is just like the bookends of the show. And it's like first person interviews, like a lot of the other podcasts that we love. So I'm very late to the party on Radio Rental. But yeah, so the story is from that. Buckle up.
That's so funny. We Psychic Sisters. I literally was listening to this on Saturday for the first time ever. I'd not heard of this either.
And again, because of course we always Psychic Sister. I had heard of it for years, like 4 years. And I was like, because it was like, oh, like Rainn Wilson's Terry Carnation. I was like, okay, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
That is not the case.
Honestly, his little bits as Terry Carnation are like very funny and I actually really enjoy them.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't want a whole episode on Terry Carnation. I don't care about Terry Carnation.
Yes.
Audibly.
Fair.
But that is not what this is. I was wrong, as I am about a lot of things. So this story was submitted anonymously to Radio Rental. So for clarity, we're just going to call this person Dave. Dave lives in a really small town where everyone knows everyone, and other than the local movie theater, there really isn't much to do. After he graduated high school, he got a job working at a local pizza place, and it sucked. As you can imagine, it was rather boring, same thing day in and day out. And given that Dave was making minimum wage and not really making a lot in tips, he really wasn't making much money. And there's like a little bit of a clarity issue that I have, because he also did an AMA where he answered a lot of questions, and I asked a question I haven't heard back. So I don't know if this happened, what we're going to talk about, happened when he was 19 or 20, or he's like 25.
Okay.
But as per what he says in Radio Rental, is that when he was 19 or 20 years old, Dave was approached about doing an apprenticeship at a local funeral home. And he went in and spoke with the funeral director, and they were in dire need of help. So Dave was hired on the spot and told that he could start the following week. For about the first month on the job, Dave was tasked with janitorial duties and light admin work, mainly cleaning, vacuuming, washing the hearse, things like that. But he was also in charge of death certificates. He organized them and was in charge of taking them to the doctors to be signed and then to the health department to be certified. Then Dave started going on death calls. He said, quote, "They kind of ease you into it real slowly. So you get acquainted with the terminology and how to speak with a family. And I guess how to handle a difficult situation. They kind of slowly teach you that. It can be tedious, but I mean, once you do one death call, they just kind of all routine after that." End quote. But the more Dave worked at the funeral home, the more he enjoyed it. Dave was a helper, and this job gave him the opportunity to help people during their most difficult time of their life. So it felt like the right fit for him. Then, on one slow Friday afternoon in October, while Dave was cleaning the hearse, the funeral home got a phone call from the hospital that they had a deceased and to come pick him up. So Dave put on a jacket and headed to the hospital. Dave said that he remembered that this incident took place in October because, in addition to there being a chill in the air, the Monster Mash was playing on the radio.
Yes.
And, quote, "When Monster Mash is playing, you usually got to crank that whenever you're going on a death call." End quote. Respect. Absolutely.
Yes. Those are the rules.
Absolutely. The funeral home had gotten the call later in the day towards the evening, so there wasn't a lot of traffic on the way to the hospital. When he arrived, he paged the security, and they took him to the third floor where the body was. Dave had been doing this job for about 5 years at this point, and 90% of the calls he got were for people who were over the age of 75 or 80, and they were usually in nursing homes. But when he went to pick up this deceased person from the hospital, Dave noted that the man was much younger than the calls he was used to answering. He said the departed appeared to be in his mid-50s and that he didn't have any visible injuries. Dave moved the individual from the hospital bed onto the stretcher, and the body was still limber, but that wasn't unusual. Again, Dave lives in a really small town. So from the moment the funeral home got the call to come pick up the body to the time that Dave arrived at the deceased room in the hospital was less than 30 minutes. Rigor mortis usually starts to set in within 2 to 4 hours after death and initially starts with the stiffening of smaller muscles in the face, like the eyelids and the jaw, before eventually progressing to the limbs and torso. So Dave moves his body onto the stretcher, and these type of stretchers or cots have 3 safety belts that are like seat belts to secure the body for transport. One belt for the upper body, one for the mid, and one for the legs. So Dave buckled the body in, covered it with a cot cover, which is basically a body bag, loaded him in the van, and headed back to the funeral home. While on the ride back, Dave was listening to some tunes. And while he says the music was cranked, it wasn't quite that loud. He came to a red light and stopped. Then he heard what sounded like the cot cover move.
No.
He said, quote, "There's no way that that's happening. That stuff only happens in movies. I was sitting still. There's no way that he moved. I thought maybe where I secured the arm came loose and it moved, might have fell to the side. try to rationalize it or just kind of downplay it because you think there's no way they let somebody go unless they were 100% deceased, end quote.
Oh my God. What the fuck is this story already, Monique?
Girl! And it's funny because I was doing this story before I watched The Mortician, and then I was like, oh, well, fuck.
Extra trauma. Amazing.
Between this story and The Mortician, I've decided I'm just never going to die. I'm going to opt out. I'm just not going to do any of that because no.
Hard pass. Thank you.
Hard pass. That's just not for me. Thank you. Love that for you. Not for me. So Dave continued on his drive to the funeral home, trying to put the unsettling sound out of his head. When he arrived, he unloaded the body and put him in the elevator and sent him up. He took off the cot cover and pulled the sheet back. Typically, when Dave would pick up a body, they were pale. Dave says sheet white and are cold to the touch. But when he pulled the sheet back, the deceased still had all of his color. Dave said that he didn't look like he was dead, but had rather just gone to sleep. Not only that, he was warm to the touch. So, I remember Queen Grace telling us that nobody is dead until they're warm and dead. And not that I would ever doubt Queen Grace. She's, after all, 1, a medical examiner, and 2, a queen. And yes, I am royalty. Just a mere plebe. But I wanted to get specific timelines on this. So everything I looked up was very adamant of these are just general guidelines and a lot of things can change or different case to case. But the general guideline is that if a body feels warm and has no rigor mortis present, death occurred less than 3 hours before. However, there are certain factors that can influence the rate of a dead body cooling, such as the ambient temperature. Colder temperatures lead to faster cooling. 1, it was October, and Dave noted that it was cool out. 2, the body was coming from a hospital, which are notoriously cold as fuck, so would likely contribute to a body cooling faster. Also, clothing is a factor when it comes to body temperature, as clothing insulates and therefore slows down heat loss. However, this person was in a hospital, so they were likely only wearing one of those paper-thin hospital gowns. So Dave picks up this body from a cold-ass hospital in October and is expecting them to be cold to the touch, but instead it's warm. And Dave gets nervous. So he started checking the body for vitals. He shined a light in the deceased eye to see if the pupils would dilate, but they didn't. However, when he checked for a pulse, Dave said he felt something. It was barely there, but he was pretty sure he felt a pulse. Dave had never experienced anything like this in the 5 years that he'd been working at the funeral home. He was freaked out. And again, this is where it's I don't know if he's 20 or 25 at this point, but he's in his early 20s and he just didn't know what to do. So he decided to get a second opinion. No one else was at the funeral home at the time except the woman who worked at the front desk. And she'd seen her fair share of bodies and unusual cases since she'd been working there for close to 50 years. So Dave told her what was going on, and she went over to investigate. She checked its vitals and agreed that the body was unusually warm. But she also thought that she felt a faint pulse. To be sure, she grabbed a stethoscope, checking the body's chest, wrist, and neck. Dave intently watched her face, trying to gauge her reaction. And while she said she had initially heard something faint, as soon as she started hearing more, she uncomfortably backed away from the body, saying that she was just hearing things, convinced that the pulse she was hearing through the stethoscope was actually the sound of her own pulse that she had initially mistaken for the corpse's.
What is going on?
I don't know.
Okay.
I do not know.
Okay. You don't have the paranormal stories, so I don't think this is a zombie situation. So what the fuck?
Girl, I don't know.
Okay.
But Dave wasn't having it. He kept going back and forth, telling her to check again, asking her if she was absolutely sure that she didn't hear anything. At that point, the woman thought Dave was overreacting. However, he said, quote, "I'm about 75% sure we both heard something," end quote. Shortly thereafter, the funeral director who ran the home arrived saying that he had met with the deceased wife. Now, Dave was still undergoing his apprenticeship and would normally have sat in on the meeting with the immediate family. However, given that they received the call towards the end of the business day on Friday, Dave didn't have the opportunity to meet the family because he was too busy rushing to get the body before the end of the day. The funeral director informed Dave that the deceased and his wife were visiting from out of town and that she wanted to get her husband cremated as soon as possible, as they were leaving town shortly and she did not want to ship his remains. So the funeral director put a rush on getting the deceased to the crematory immediately so that they could get his remains to his wife as quickly as possible. The thing is, this process usually takes a few days because when someone dies, there's a lot of paperwork that you have to deal with and sign and file. You have to get a death certificate signed by a doctor, and you have to get copies of it. And you have to have those copies certified. And most crematoriums only operate during standard weekday business hours. And again, this was late afternoon on a Friday. Most of the day was already gone, and this woman wants her husband's remains to be ready by the time she leaves first thing on Monday. And Dave was just like, there's no way we can do this. It's already the end of the day. How are we going to get a doctor to sign off on the death certificate in such a short amount of time? But the funeral director made it clear that this all had to be done basically now because the widow was adamant that her husband be cremated as soon as possible.
Red flag.
100%.
The lady doth protest too much.
100%. Yes. Because Dave lived in a small town, it's the type of thing where everybody knows everybody. So the funeral director knew the doctor, and he personally called him up and explained the situation, that they needed a quick turnaround on this, and the doctor agreed to sign the death certificate quickly. But none of this sat right with Dave. He said, quote, "Usually when someone passes away, the last thing on your mind is getting them to the crematory as quick as possible. She was wanting that done as quick as possible." End quote.
Correct. The people who want to rush bodies to the crematorium are usually involved in their murder.
Yep. That's what I think.
Yep.
Personally. But the thing is, Dave is still basically a kid. He's in his early 20s, and even though there's all of these alarm bells going off that something wasn't right in the situation, he doesn't feel that he's empowered to stand up and challenge this any more than he's already doing. So he just did what he was told. So Dave placed the body into a cremation box, which is just a cardboard box with 2x4s on the bottom, loaded him into the van, and booked it to the doctor's office to get the signature for the death certificate before he closed, then headed to the crematory. While on his drive to the crematory, Dave once again heard a sound coming from the back of the van. He said it sounded like something was hitting the cardboard box.
Stop it. What the fuck is this story? Okay.
What the fuck? Girl, I don't know. The two of us psychic sistered in the most what the fuck stories imaginable.
Oh my God,
because of course we did.
Yes.
Dave said, quote, "It was loud enough that I knew something had happened. I knew something had hit that box. I was thinking and I was kind of praying, show me the right thing to do here because I never experienced this before." End quote. And Dave was like, okay, all this is weird. So he was like, okay, as soon as I get to the crematory, I'm going to ask the guy who works there for a third opinion to confirm that this guy is actually dead. So when Dave pulls up to the crematorium, he's met by one of the workers there, as usual. And Dave says to the man, quote, "Weird story. I got a guy. I need you to take a third opinion just to be sure because I don't want to do anything, that I'm going to regret for the rest of my life."
Yeah.
End quote.
Accidentally cremate a live person.
Huh?
Oh my God, Monique, this is the stuff of nightmares.
Yes. And if you remember the episode I did several months ago, people being declared dead when they're not is a thing that still happens to this day.
Yes.
even with all of the science and medical things. And it's the stuff of nightmares and alarming, and it should not be a thing that's happening.
Nope.
And Dave said the man looked at him like he was nuts. The two took off the top of the box, and the body was in a different position.
I'm going to launch myself out of this chair, Monique. Get
girl
the fuck out of here.
Dave said, quote, "The body had definitely shifted. It was not how I put it in there. It was almost like he was on his side. I just had a feeling deep down that something wasn't right. There's no way I could have turned him over on his side with my driving," end quote. So Dave is adamant, telling the worker, "I know you think I'm crazy, but I've been hearing a lot of sounds," and he's warmed to the touch. And we thought we heard a faint pulse, and this has never happened to me before, but something's not right here. And I just need to get a third opinion because I want to be 100% sure that this man is 100% deceased before we load him into the crematory.
Correct. Those are the only acceptable percentages. Yes.
So the crematory worker indulged Dave and grabbed his stethoscope from his office, came out to check for vitals on the alleged corpse. The worker checked the body's wrists, his neck, then his chest. And Dave saw the man's eyes grow wide as saucers. He said that he too heard a very faint pulse in the body's chest.
Oh, thank God.
And Dave's like, "Okay, what should we do here?" And the worker's like, "Let's call the main funeral director in charge, aka Dave's boss, and tell him what's going on and see what he wants to do." So Dave calls him up and tells him the situation, but the funeral director is adamant that the cremation has to happen tonight, reiterating that the widow wants him cremated tonight because she's leaving town, before curtly ordering Dave to just get it done.
Oh my God.
Dave tried to feel for any breaths coming from the man, but he couldn't feel anything. Dave said, quote, "It was almost like he was in a coma. I don't really know how to explain. It was just different. It was like, yeah, he wasn't fully dead, but he wasn't fully alive," end quote. So he asked the crematory worker, "Okay, what's the verdict? What do we do here?" And the man said that he didn't know. That while he did hear something faint, now he was starting to think that maybe he was hearing things and that Dave had made him paranoid. And Dave's like, "No, I think something super sketch is going on here."
Correct.
And the two men went back and forth. Dave said, quote, "He didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do. I got to do something here to stop it. But whenever I asked the lady at the front desk, whenever I asked the guy at the crematory, when I asked my boss, and everyone was just, shooting me down, doubting me, I thought, maybe I'm kind of overreacting and I'm kind of crazy here. But in the back of my mind, I just had that sinking feeling that something's not right. 3 people against me. I tried to convince myself at that point that I was the issue," end quote.
No.
So Dave did what he was ordered to do. The 2 men loaded the body into the incinerator, closed the door, and turned it on. It takes 2 hours to cremate a body, and Dave said he spent those 2 hours reflecting. He said, quote, "Did I make the right decision? Did I not make the right decision? It was one of those internal battles. This is someone's kid, could be someone's dad, but everybody is just calling me crazy. I wanted to be 100% sure, and I wasn't 100% sure at that point. What if I made the wrong decision? What if I would have went against everybody else and been right?" End quote. When they were done, Dave was given the man's cremains, which he boxed up and took back to the funeral home and placed on his desk before heading out for the weekend. And all weekend, Dave just went back and forth with himself, trying to convince himself that he was just overreacting but he still couldn't shake the feeling that something just didn't feel right about the whole situation. When Monday arrived, Dave rushed over to the health department as soon as it opened to get the certified death certificates. He was running around getting everything done to make sure that everything was ready by the time the widow came by the funeral home to pick up the remains that morning. He put the box of cremains in a small bag, along with the death certificate, as well as blank cards so that the bereaved could use to write thank you notes to people if they were so inclined. Against all odds and an impossibly tight turnaround, they got it done. Everything was ready, and now they just waited for her to come pick up her husband's remains. There were a lot of security cameras at the funeral home, and again, Dave didn't sit in on the meeting with the immediate family because he was busy picking up the body from the hospital. So he didn't know what the deceased widow looked like. So Dave watched the security monitors, waiting for someone to walk in. And every time someone did, Dave went out and greeted them. But they would always be there for something else. They'd be there for a different service, or they would be there asking to sign a book on somebody else. The clock ticked by, and the woman who had been so insistent her husband be cremated immediately because she was leaving town was nowhere to be seen.
This bitch already ran away to Mexico or some shit.
Dave asked his boss if he had heard from her or tried calling her. The secretary called the woman several times, but all of the calls were sent to voicemail. Monday came and went. She didn't show up. Tuesday, Wednesday, there's still no sign of her. They kept calling her, but there's no answer. And the calls just kept getting sent to voicemail. They tried to rationalize that maybe she stayed in town a little bit longer, and that's why she's no longer in a rush to pick up the remains. But by the time that Friday rolled around, Dave knew that this woman wasn't going to show up. Dave said, quote, "If she was in such a rush to get that done, and she was in no rush whatsoever to pick him up, that just spoke volumes to me. She was concerned about the wrong thing." End quote. The cremains and the bag sat on Dave's desk for a month, but the woman never showed up to claim them.
Stop.
Not only that, she didn't even pay for the cremation. So the funeral home was stuck with a cremation bill. Dave tried looking her up on social media. He tried Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He searched the town that she said she was from. He even just straight up Googled her, hoping to find any information on her, an address, anything. But nothing came up. He also tried looking up the deceased, and while he was able to find his social media, it was set to private, so it was another dead end. The funeral home kept calling the woman, and the phone number was eventually disconnected. Dave said, quote, "Something was definitely just not right. I felt like I had made the wrong decision." End quote. In the 5 years that Dave worked at the funeral home, that was the only cremation that was done the same day. Overwhelmed with guilt, Dave resigned from the funeral home, saying, quote, "That was just eating away at me, and it still eats away at me. It's something I think about every day. What if the individual you load in there was still alive? You know, you're there to help people in their darkest times at the funeral, but what if you took a life and didn't even mean to? When somebody's cremated, there's no turning back. You can't do an autopsy or anything and see if anything was up, as cremations are pretty final." End quote. While Dave considered contacting the police, he didn't think there was much that they would be able to do after the fact. It's not like they could investigate foul play on a cremated body, especially one that had a death certificate stating that there wasn't a suspicious cause of death. The most they would be able to do would be file a judgment on the unpaid funeral home bill. However, after the radio rental episode aired, Dave did contact the local police. But again, being that he's from a small town where everyone knows everyone, and not only that, the police and Dave's former boss are good friends, which isn't that surprising given that police and funeral directors often work together as police provide escorts for funeral processions. So when Dave called, he made an anonymous report, and the officer who took the call said that they'd look into it and that someone would get back to him. After several months, Dave eventually heard back from the local police, who told him there wasn't enough evidence to go off of to conduct a proper investigation. This unsettling incident happened several years ago, and while Dave says that he really misses working at the funeral home, that he just couldn't live with himself after what happened. After his episode aired, Dave called his friend who now runs the funeral home to inquire about the box of remains. They're still there, unclaimed, all these years later. If there was foul play, Dave struggles with finding a motive. He reasons that it couldn't have been financial, as you need to present a certified death certificate to claim life insurance or change the deed to a house, and the only one certified death certificate is still in the box of cremains at the funeral home. Dave said, quote, I mean, you see this stuff on movies. I mean, you hear podcasts all the time with people killing for life insurance and all the drugs that people could give people to make them not fully dead. I don't know. I just ran a million things through my mind. I don't know what fully happened. My gut feeling was, and he like gets emotional in this moment and he starts kind of like choking up, and he apologizes and he says, my gut feeling was she did something wrong and she was wanting to get rid of it as quick as possible and then never face it again. I've never really gotten over that. End quote. While Dave still struggles with a lot of guilt over what happened since the podcast aired and has reported that it has helped him immensely. And that is the story of Dave and the time that he may or may not have been an accessory to murder.
I'm never recovering. I'm shell-shocked. You thought you were speechless at my story?
It's the speechless episode.
What?
Girl.
The actual fuck.
If I wasn't already like traumatized with cremations after the scene in Scrooged, like this, like never, ever, ever, ever. I'm saying it now on the podcast. I don't ever want to be cremated. So if I die all of a sudden and someone is like, oh, Monique said she wanted to be cremated, that's a lie. They killed me.
Roll this tape.
It is on the record right now.
I am just horrified. Mm-hmm. To live with that, to live with the knowledge that you might have done that. And to have the remains sitting there mocking you on your desk, basically, like,
yeah.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine any of this. Oh my God.
He did an AMA on Reddit, and there were like a couple people who called bullshit or were like about like, well, he would have been in rigor mortis, but again, it was like, I was really small. Like I got there in less than 30 minutes, you know, being like, you're a piece of shit that you didn't do more. Why didn't you call like a doctor? Why didn't you call the cops? And he was just like, it like didn't occur to me. I you know, but there were a lot of nurses who were like, if that is the state that the person was in, they were like the point of no return, that they're basically brain dead. Like,
don't beat yourself up.
Kind of like, don't feel guilty about this.
Yeah.
Which like,
Yes. But also, I feel guilty that I basically like let somebody get away with
murder. That I burned
a
man alive.
Yes.
And I let someone get away with murder.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Which is why this is I went rogue, because it's technically, we don't know that a crime has been committed. We're speculating that something nefarious happened to this man.
I'm going to go on record and say a crime was committed.
I mean, same. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love when you go rogue.
Thank you.
That was so deeply upsetting, but fascinating. What the fuck? I feel like I just need to stare at a wall for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely shell-shocked. Like, what?
Yeah. Same with your story. Guys, just go watch the UK version of Ghosts. Like, palate cleanse the fuck out of this episode. Oh my God.
I think we all need it right now. I think we all need it.
Yeah.
That was so good, though. Thank you so much for that story. I definitely had not heard that before. I understand why he was anonymous. And I actually, like, as we were, like, getting to the climax of the story, I was like, oh my God, he's anonymous. And I feel like I know why now. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude? Like, standing ovation, though. Knocked it out of the park. I was not expecting this at all.
Thank you. I believe it's episode 15 of Radio Rental.
Okay.
So upsetting. So all of my worst nightmares.
Yeah. New fear unlocked.
And then to basically be bullied into, like the Nuremberg defense of like, I did what I was told and I felt like I didn't.
Yeah. I was just going to say, this is like the Milgram experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, everyone in authority is telling me to do this.
And they're telling me like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, you're imagining things.
You're being crazy.
Yeah.
And that it's all these years later and he's still like fucked up about it.
Yeah.
Like, I hope he was imagining things.
I do too. I hope this man finds peace.
Yeah.
That's so fucked, dude.
It really is.
But again, kudos. That was an amazing story. I was not prepared for that. But
Thank you.
I deeply fascinating. I loved it.
Thank you. Was not prepared for your story. Holy fuck.
I know, it's a speechless episode. You called it.
It's a speechless episode. Yeah.
Yep.
But I love you in every possible way.
I love you.
And we love you. This is another fucking horror podcast. I'm Monique Sanchez.
And I'm Amy Trade.
You can follow me on the gram at PinUpGirlMo.
You can follow me at Lobotomy, and that's Lobot.Amy.
Check out our website, anotherfuckinghorrorpodcast.com. There you can sign up for our newsletter to be abreast to all of the new shit coming your way. And there's going to be a lot of new shit. There you can sign up for the Patreon to get access to our Patreon exclusive episodes, including episode by episode coverage of Chimp Crazy. And it is not a misnomer, guys. Holy fuck. It's crazy. You could also get our merch there, all the good stuff. And you get to see gorgeous pictures of us and Boo.
Yes.
Amy's cat. So you don't want to miss that. So sign up for that. Also, every 6th episode, we do a True Listener Tales episode where we read your true crazy stories. So if you have one or you just want to say hi, email us at anotherfuckinghorrorpodcast@gmail.com with a period instead of the U in fucking. Guys, if you are enjoying this episode or any of our episodes or just the show, please rate and review and subscribe and tell some friends. If you want them to be speechless because they've been talking too much and you don't want to hear from them, send over this fucking episode. But truly, like, every review and every rating really helps us out to get more visibility so that hopefully one day sooner rather than later, we can do this as our full-time gig, just traumatizing ourselves and each other and you fine folk. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being rad as fuck. As always, keep it cute.
Keep it creepy.
Bye.